So I thought I might try something a little bit different this evening and try to be productive for a change. I know a lot of people come to videos like this because they are considering moving overseas to work, often in a teaching capacity. And the two places I've worked so far, People's Republic of China and the Republic of Korea, are definitely two of the most popular places, and they're often compared back and forth. Be able to say which one should you go with. So I'm going to answer that. And I know it may seem obvious because of all the complaining I've been doing, but I want to be a little bit productive here. Now, there are, to my mind, if you can get into China, it is a better bet for many people. For the simple reason that there are fewer foreigners there, which means you're intrinsically considered more valuable. This honestly might be the number one decision if you're wanting to do this in some serious capacity. The more people, the easier it is to get into a country, and the more foreigners are there, the more you are inherently seen as disposable. I mean, this is true anywhere. You go where your skills are needed. And the fact is, there are many times more people willing to do this work here than in China. So that right there is why, honestly, I would, for most people, recommend China over Korea at this point. But I thought about it today, and I can think of one exception. If you are, as I discussed in the last video, all the people doing the gap year thing, if that's you, if this is something you really are just going to do once for the experience and then never and be gone in a year, there is an argument to be made for Korea. And it's based on two things. Really, it's based on one thing that's split into two parts, which is that it's a hell of a lot easier to adapt to this society than to Chinese society. And it comes down to two reasons. First, on the ground level, not so much in terms of their like overall culture on a higher abstract level, but just on the practical day-to-day issues, Korea is a much, much more westernized country. It's going to be a lot more familiar to you. I've mentioned one. I was did a video about that you can get cold drinks here. I got one, which was weirdly expensive. That is an issue I have. Korea, a lot of things are weirdly expensive compared to China. But the point is, you can get this. You can get cold drinks. They have, you see a lot more, I think to most Americans would be a conventional toilet as opposed to the squatters. Probably going to be a big selling point for women in particular, I'm sure. There are a lot of products that are more common here, and there are businesses. Like I've seen coin-operated laundries, which for various reasons are just non-existent in China. And so a lot of the little conveniences, on top of which you're going to encounter, especially in cities, a larger portion of the population that speaks at least some English. So it's a lot easier to get by if you do not know the language. That's one. The second, and this to me may not be a plus for everyone, but I think it is going to be for most people, much, much larger proportion of Americans here. It's not just, there are, depending on who you ask, 20 to 40 times more foreigners, proportionally speaking, here. But also, China has very few Americans, which never bothered me. Chinese people seem to always assume that everyone wants to hang out with their country, and I'm thinking if that was true, I wouldn't have left the States. But the point is, my coworkers and the people I hung out with in China were from all over the world. Here, probably 80 to 90% Americans. It's much easier for us to get in here. In spite of all the horse shit I went through, it is much easier for us to get in here. It's a much friendlier climate. Again, to kind of depend on who you ask. They're a lot more familiar because of all the military bases. So you do tend to encounter more Americans. May not be a plus side to everyone. Honestly, I'm not sure it's a plus to me. But there you go. If you are just in it for the story, if you just want some stories to tell your friends back home and impress them because you're so worldly, there is a case to be made for coming here over China simply because so many aspects of Chinese culture will take more than a year to adapt to. And if you're not willing to commit to being over there for several years, there is a case to be made for coming here instead. Though I would not personally recommend it.